I worked on the M&A team that helped with that acquisition, and so I got to know some of the Martin Bencher colleagues before we had it officially signed, sealed, and delivered. It's given us now a global platform with a few hundred people involved, and we're represented in each one of our regions now to execute fully end-to-end project solutions.
Thanks for checking out Project Cargo Professionals. We talk a lot about digitalization and AI on this show, which is why I want to tell you about our sponsor, Logiswift. Logiswift makes your operations faster and simpler, managing the entire cargo lifecycle in one smart platform. With real end-to-end visibility, you can adapt quickly when things change. Built for Project Cargo, it's now even more powerful with its new AI feature. Check out logiswift.com to take your supply chain to the next level, or message me directly and I'll connect you with Ziad, Khan and the team. Now to the show. Lana, it's nice to see you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for asking. Pleasure to be here.
Lana, everybody knows Maersk, but Maersk Project Logistics is an interesting company. Can you tell us what that is and what it isn't?
Happy to, and I'm glad you asked. I think for many, they're surprised to find out that Maersk has a project division. And in fact, what we are is a part of Maersk that operates in the space that doesn't fit some of our other product lines. So you think of Maersk often, and this is what we're not. We're not the cellular solution that you're looking for on fleet, your annual contracts that you want to sign with Maersk for space. And when you see me out, I may or may not know how to go find your 20-foot container that you're waiting for an answer on, but we'll find a way to help you. What we are, though, is a global team that covers all 5 regions that Maersk operates in. And we perform services on fleet and off. And we also serve as the on-fleet, out-of-gauge, specialized hauling part of Maersk. So with our expertise in project cargo, it lends itself well to supporting that on the fleet.
So when Lana calls, she's not calling to sell you space on a ship?
Well, we might if it's connected to a project that we're very interested in, and that might be a way for us to leverage some of our assets together to make an attractive value proposition to a client, certainly.
So tell us how you got into the business. What did your early career look like?
Oh my gosh, now we're going back to ancient history, but I fell into the business by accident. I was rewarding myself with some time off out of school in my pursuit of a law degree because I'd worked so hard and needed time off and wound up answering an ad for a freight forwarding company. And back in the day, it was freight forwarding, not logistics, not supply chain. It was freight forwarding. No clue what it was, but it seemed like it might pay well, and I talked myself into a job I was completely unqualified for and hung around long enough to fall in love with the business, really.
Did it pay well? How did that work out?
It ended up working out pretty well, but I started off at $400 a month for a company called Bering International, long since gone, but at that time was the largest privately owned forwarder in the world, and they specialized in projects. So I started at the epicenter of what projects was in the day, along with a lot of industry leaders from back in that day, the Tony Garcias, the Gamina brothers, Alan Newhouse. Those are names old hands will remember. And I aspired to be an export clerk, which if you passed the test for that, you would wind up with $450 a month, which was a lot of money back in those days. So yeah, it was quite an adventure. More than the money, though, it was such a unique experience when you started to kind of put the dots together. I was so naive when I moved to Houston. I just moved here, and I didn't know Houston had a ship channel. So I really didn't have a concept of what we were doing sitting in this room talking about whatever. Nothing resonated. And in one of the classes that we had, it was on trade definitions. And again, now I'm really going to date myself. Pre-Incoterms, American Foreign Trade Definitions, you had to pass a class in it. And as I was sitting in there, I thought, oh, that's what this is about. People buying and selling things to each other from all over the world. How interesting. The next kind of piece was an opportunity to start volunteering to go down to the docks. And I fell in love with it. To actually see the cargo being loaded on ships and knowing that you play some very minute and at that time a really, really small part. But it was exciting. Where else are you going to get a job like that?
And a couple of years ago, you guys had a major acquisition of Martin Bencher. I'm sure many people listening and watching knew Martin Bencher. Tell us why that came about and how the integration was and what that looks like today.
Oh, happy to. I'm proud to say that I worked on the M&A team that helped with that acquisition. And so I got to know some of the Martin Bencher colleagues before we had it officially signed, sealed, and delivered. And they're wonderful people. And I'm so grateful that most of them stayed with the organization. So Martin Bencher we knew as a customer, and I knew a few people who worked there, but I didn't know the organization early on as well as I came to know them. So it was just a perfect fit for us. The piece of Maersk that was still around doing projects, we had evolved out of Damco, which was the wholly owned forwarding arm of Maersk. We came across in 2019 with the expertise to help with on-fleet solutions for out-of-gauge cargo primarily, but we were a project team that were only in North America and a couple of people still in Europe, but that was it. The rest of the world had kind of been shut down, if you will, or had stopped moving any project cargo. And now we have opportunities with customers who are coming to us saying, these are solutions we'd like from you, and realizing that we need more than just this handful of talent, that we needed a really deep pool of talent, and to have that talent spread across all 5 regions. And that's what Martin Bencher was to start with. So that was a big piece. For Maersk in the acquisition arena, it's very important that culturally we have a fit, that we're aligned in values and thinking, and Martin Bencher is very much aligned in that way. All of them culturally aligned, and also with the integrity that we want to see in place and those values that they brought to the table. So that was big for us. They also held ISO certifications, 3 of them, that would be extended to us after the acquisition with some provisional things that we needed to take care of. And that meant that we had to structure our project team slightly differently than how some of the rest of Maersk is set up. So that took a bit of time, but we got it done. And it's given us now a global platform with a few hundred people involved, and we're represented in each one of our regions now to execute fully end-to-end project solutions.
So it was kind of a fast track to a projects business, really.
It was. It was a return to projects business that we had left behind at Damco to say, but I would say an even more enhanced version because of the talent, skill sets, and expertise of our Martin Bencher colleagues that came in.
So bring us up to date and tell us about your role now.
Well, I'm currently the head of projects for Maersk in North America, and we have a team here that supports that in 2 ways I kind of mentioned. One is the project side of the business, connecting to all of our colleagues across the globe. And the other is to provide the on-fleet solutions for landside services on out-of-gauge cargo. So if you have flat racks or open tops moving on fleet that have special trucking needs or CFS solutions, we would support on that business as well.
And your group also includes APM terminals.
It does.
Talk to us a bit about that and how that fits into what you can offer.
Well, I think when you look at what we bring to the table for consideration, we own our own assets. So we've got the fleet, of course, and then if it's government cargo, to think about us, we've got the world's largest U.S. flag fleet. So there's that option to support on government defense contracts to say. And then we have APM terminals, which globally also give us a footprint and a platform to look at how to connect resources needed for on-fleet and on-dock solutions. And then we've got our own warehousing and trucking here in North America. That's several million square feet of available space to leverage and work with. So when we look at creating what we call an integrated solution for a customer, you might look at Maersk Project Logistics being a bit of an orchestrator to take all of these various services within Maersk and connect them to create a solution that we hope would bring value to a customer.
So here in the US, what are the major port facilities that you have as APM that are particularly suitable for breakbulk project cargo?
Well, I think when you say suitable, I think there's 3 that we work with, and it takes, we really have to look at it case by case. Mobile is a great port for us because we have some laydown space there, and they're also very breakbulk friendly for us, and we've got a variety of lift equipment there that'll support when we want maybe to charter our own ship to bring in or something along those lines. We do work with Pier 400 in LA. It takes a little bit more coordination in part because of the road restrictions and regulations in California for out-of-gauge cargo, which we all know in this industry can be an added challenge. And then on the East Coast in Newark, where we Again, same sort of complexity when you look at that area being very congested and super developed, and some requirements needed to move cargo efficiently and effectively in that kind of infrastructure.
And obviously decarbonisation is a big topic for the shipping industry. How's Maersk addressing that?
I think we're leading. I want to proudly say that I think we're really in the front of that it's been something that Maersk has addressed from day one and really adopted, and very proud of the progress that we're making there. I know that anyone who follows our social media will see the regular rollouts of new vessels coming out and how those are being fueled. And I think really we spoke a little bit earlier about culture being such a big concern for Maersk and making sure that things fit. And our policies there fit there as well, because the intent is the overall global community. How do we serve future generations? What does that look like?
There is still a big question mark around future fuels, though, isn't there?
There is. I think we all have those questions, and if you're going to expect me to give you the answer today,
well, we were hoping.
Yeah, you need to probably bring in somebody that's a little bit more in their wheelhouse of how we're sourcing fuel or looking at it. What I can say is that I know Maersk is committing the resources to be sure that we get those decisions made well and on time.
And at the start of the year, for an Outlook piece, you said that you thought oil and gas would continue to drive a lot of the business. How do you see that now? Has that happened, and what is driving most of your business in this region?
I think we've seen a number of things, but energy across the board, certainly. So energy to include oil and gas and renewables. That's definitely still been a big piece of the business. And I think when we listen to the experts of what lies ahead, we continue to hear that that's the direction that we will see growth.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about renewables because I know that was a major area for you. Has that changed? Has it gone down, or have you still got that business?
No, I think when you look at where we're headquartered in Copenhagen and the Danish wind industry there that we've been certainly very passionate about, and across many countries, the same passionate embrace for that, if you will, and our commitment to serve those industries, I think it's still a very viable option, and one that we see as part of the future ahead.
And what are your customers most concerned about today?
The same thing they've always been concerned about: communication, visibility. So I think we look at today, everyone wants, of course, we're all looking at how do you stay in the market, how do you stay competitive. But one of the things that we always come back to in almost any in-depth conversation is always communication is key. And so I think that takes a very broad form. They're not just referring to updates, what's happening on my shipment on this piece of cargo, but I think they're also looking to us of where do you see the market, what lies ahead, what are you doing with that. We have a service that shippers can subscribe to get updates on what's new and happening at Maersk, where are we headed, what are we doing, and I think that's also nice that we're able to share that piece of communication that is across all of the products that we provide and across all of the service lanes that we are visible in.
And what about the tariffs and all the disruption that comes with that? What are your customers saying, and what's the feedback you're getting from customers at the moment?
Oh my goodness, I think, isn't this at the forefront of almost every single conversation? And like everyone else, I get up and read the news every day to see what is the latest release and what we think will or might or should happen. I think one of the things that I've really observed with this has only happened one other time in logistics. I recall, normally when you go to a function somewhere and people ask what you do and you say, I'm in shipping, and they have some idea that, I'm loading a truck somewhere, which is great work too, but it's not necessarily what I do. And so over time I had said, well, we're sort of like a travel agent for cargo. That was my way to get around it. But most people really didn't know what we do. During COVID, we became relevant. And now during this tariff issue, we're relevant once again. This is where the global supply chain has such impact to our individual lives, all of us, that people are certainly interested. So the interest is across every single industry is asking questions. There's not a country in the world that's not interested in leaning in to understand it. And I think what we're looking at is we just want to take in the best information available and try to disseminate that as fast as we can to make sure we're making the right decisions for our customers. There are some products that Maersk offers, a little bit of a sales pitch here, but to aid customers in their decisions on how to source what they need globally. So I think that's also an area that we want to try to be supportive.
And I saw an interesting project recently that you handled some LNG tanks from South Korea to the US. Tell us about that project and why that was an interesting one for you.
It was a super interesting one. Now you're asking that question as if I were actually involved doing any of the real work for that, and I wasn't. I would like to say that a gentleman, Carter Axelson, on our team led the operations side of that initiative. And yeah, it was really a challenge because the tanks were roughly 18 foot wide, 18 foot high, also overweight, and where they needed to be moved from at origin in Korea, there was not really a port facility close enough for us to be able to move it very well. So that took some work. We had boots on the ground there trying to get that piece sorted out. And then coming inbound to the States was also another challenge because there wasn't a port facility or dock facility anywhere close. So that's when, Project Ingenuity kicks in, and to coin my buddy Rob T., find a way or make one, which is our mantra, jump in the car, and drive up the coast and start stopping in places to see what we could work out. And we ended up working a deal with a boat manufacturing company to use their facility. And at times, with these shallow draft barges that we were working with, the draft was only 2 foot. So we really had to time the tide to get the draft we needed. It's in a highly congested area, lots of recreational boaters, and we all know how well they follow the waterway rules. So we had to be especially cognizant of that and really careful. And then we got very close to finally having it all ready to go, and then we got shut down for an air show in the area with lots of boats on the water to enjoy and observe that. So it had its own unique challenges. But we spoke earlier about infrastructure in certain parts of the country, and this is an area where that was definitely a restriction. Bridges, roadways, underpasses that we just simply couldn't clear, and this was the only way to get this done. And we actually, from start to finish, it was almost about 2 years in the making to pull this off. We were involved in the initial fabrication with the supplier and customer, all the way through to final delivery into the facility.
So in terms of being a woman in a male-dominated industry, how do you see that? Is it a conversation that still needs to be had today, or is that fading?
Well, first of all, let's dial back on a male-dominated industry. Is it, really still? I'm not sure. Is it a question that needs to be asked? Sadly, yes. I mean, I think I have a little different take, I think, sometimes on the women sort of cheering on women and women hear me roar. I don't feel that's really the right way. I don't participate in a lot of women's groups. I do in a few that especially focus on mentorship, because I think that's always great, but I don't think that it should be limited by gender. I think when gender doesn't matter at all anymore, then we don't have to answer that question. As long as we still think we need to ask it, we still need to fix it. Really, it's just about is someone good for the job or not? Can they do the job or not? And who does it best? And whoever that is should be the person in the seat. That's what I really think and believe. When I started in the business, it was very, very, very different. Again, dark ages, a million years ago. And it was...
Tell us what it was like then. There'll be people that are too young. They won't remember
back
the
when
bad
there's
days.
machinery that's gone obsolete since then. Prior to when I started in the industry, it was just at the evolution of the fax machine, for example, and you had 8 or 12 minutes per page, and that was only sent in dire emergency because it was so expensive. Everything was manually typed. There was no automation of any kind, and so all of that administrative work was done by females. Almost across the board. There were very few men sitting in those open bullpen areas across any forwarder's office you popped your head into. The outside walls where the windows were where all the men's offices were. And it was definitely a male-dominated industry then, no question about it. In Houston at that time, a woman could not go unescorted into the bar at the World Trade Club, which was downtown Houston. So the office I mentioned, the company I work for, Bering, they were in the Southwest, the old Southwest Life building, and we were in close proximity to the Cotton Exchange building, which is where a lot of the shipping lines were, and the World Trade Club, which is where all of the men went for lunch and drinks, which was also very, very common in the industry at that time. So to think that you would go anywhere today for an industry function that a woman would not be allowed to go in unless you had a male escort is people can't even believe that it was like that, but it was. And it wasn't something that there was a march against or a protest. It was just accepted. It's just how it was. I sat in this little bullpen space and looked around, and my big glamorous move for myself was just to think, I'd like to have one of those offices with a window. I wasn't necessarily trying to be the biggest cheese on the big cheese block. I just thought a window would be cool. That was my initial motivation, and that was about the time that falling in love with the business also changed a lot of things. I became pretty resilient and a little thick-skinned about some things, and found that I could diffuse a lot with humor. That was my path through, and it stuck with me till today, almost to the annoyment of some of my colleagues that I still have to make jokes back and forth for me to feel comfortable in my space. But I survived, and on the way through that, met lots of fabulous people, had wonderful mentors, mostly male. I didn't have too many women around at that time. I hope that today that adventure looks very, very different for everyone who comes in the industry. And as they're picking people to mentor with, that it's based on what they can learn from them and not just what a gender lineup might look like.
What advice would you give for young women who are thinking of going into shipping and logistics?
Get here as quick as you can. Don't waste a minute. Do it. And don't limit yourself to one area of the business. I think the more you can learn, the better. At one time, I wanted to be a stevedore. I would volunteer to go down to watch cargo load. And again, at this time in the industry, it was a lot of conventional self-geared vessels that we're watching load. And so the stevedores did their planning then manually. There wasn't a lot of software to do that, and I thought it was fascinating. So that's what I thought I would do, is learn how to load ships, that I would be the one that figured it all out, like the big Tetris puzzle of how to put it all in and how to get it all back off. And nowadays, of course, software does an awful lot of that work for us. But there hasn't been any area of the business that I haven't been interested in. And I think that when you consider other career paths, and I do talk to a lot of college age and younger about thinking about logistics for a career, because from serving on a ship, maybe a shipboard career, taking that path through warehousing, running a DC somewhere, orchestrating like we do, global solutions end to end, where you get to touch a little bit of everything. I really can't think of any other industry that brings as much variety and would have, even for me, all these years, still wake up every day with something else I can learn, something new to forage into, and paths that I never considered I'd get to set my foot on. So I would say definitely get into it immediately. Set your cap for it. Go to school for it. Get out and do your internships. Get on with a company and learn everything you can. Always have your hand in the air to volunteer.
No hesitation.
None.
And when you look back, what's been your career highlight so far?
I don't know if there's one. I think there's many. I think that when I look at when you get to one of those places where you think all options have been considered, and then the light goes on and there's one more, and you've done it again. I think those are always big highlights. But personally, I think it's when I'm in the aid and relief space. A lot of what I've done over the years has been to get equipment, machinery where it needs to go at a certain time, help factories get up and running when they should be, make sure the supply chain doesn't shut down. Most of us in the Houston area know what it means when someone walks in a room and says, hand carry, rig down. Those kinds of things have also been exciting. But what's really made it different, and this was really highlighted during COVID for me, is when we're making tactical decisions quickly in a really challenging environment based on years of experience to be able to make those decisions, and the end result is truly saving someone's life. We say we're not rocket science, and we're also not surgeons. We're not typically getting opportunities to do things that really, really make differences. So to me, that's when all of the sleepless nights and working holidays and traveling the world and sitting in airports comes down to, well, you learned all that stuff so you could do this. And that's where it really makes a huge difference for me. And it's not like me personally. I mean us as a team, as a group, being able to leverage that together and pulling those solutions in place. It happened quite a lot during COVID. We're chartering planes almost every day. Everyone was scrambling, trying to find a way to get things done. to get vaccines where they needed to go, equipment into hospitals where it needed to go. And then other times, one that really sticks in my mind is we were sending relief supplies to an area that had some conflict, and it was life-saving equipment. It was a charter flight of ambulances that we sent. And one of the people involved with the charter flight had family at the other end of where we were headed with these, and his parents, and hadn't been able to raise them. And our driver was able to connect his parents while they were there on a sat phone, and he got to speak to them. And I thought that was probably one of my best days.
Rewarding day.
It was.
And the low light? What's been the difficult moments?
Oh, there's no difficult moments. There was an old commercial that used to run to say there's no crying in shipping, and I love that commercial. I'm not going to say what brand that was, but I thought it was genius marketing. I think we all have those moments. I don't care what career path you take. I think it would be, for me, what I've learned in all the years is that there are some things that really matter, and that's your family and what happens with your family. And then there are things that are challenges that we have to manage and find our way through and over or around. And I believe that's what it means to say, find a way or make one. So when you get at the lowest point, and it's specifically related to a shipment that didn't go as planned or a customer that's not happy, those things that need to be resolved, that's when you gear up and suit up and show up and go get it done. I mean, that's just all there is to it.
And when you're not in the office, what can we find you doing? What do you like to do outside of work?
Well, kind of a wide range of things. I ride motorcycles. I still do that, though not as much. Not as much. Let's be honest. I don't have a lot of time to do that. Love to travel. I'm a sort of an adventurer, so I like to grab up 12 or 14 family members and haul them off somewhere put them on a death march to go see everything we can see in 7 days. And we're probably that family that you see traveling abroad somewhere. I love the water. I'm always in the water somewhere. That's where I really find good time to relax. And I read every day, and have for years and years. So I read several hundred books a year. Reading's really a passion.
Several hundred books?
Yeah, I do. I read pretty quick. Oh, they're just those little tiny, like 4-page books. No, not really. I do read a lot, and I enjoy it.
But the old school proper book, or you're reading it on a device?
No, I'm an e-reader. Back in the day, I used to carry extra luggage to take enough books with me when I was going to be out of the country for a couple of weeks. So I'd have reading material, and I was leaving books all over, and my house was full of books, and I was donating books. And so as soon as that was an option, I was on board immediately. And, I really rarely go anywhere without a book.
And we're not too far away from the big anniversary Breakbulk Americas this year.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. What do you think people are going to be talking about this year? What's going to be driving the conversations?
I hope we talk a little bit about where we've gotten to be here still 35 years later. I hope that's part of the conversation. I'm sure we'll have some old home week stories and whatnot, but surely it's going to be around tariffs. I think that's going to be a big driving conversation for all of us. I think it'll be around capacity. What's going to happen with the fleets? How does the conventional vessel side look like? What does the breakbulk market truly look like? What's going to drive pricing? What's happening in the Middle East? I think those are going to be some of the things at discussion tables around the arena. That's what we find people talking about now. I assume 2 or 3 months down the road, it'll be the same.
And give us your highlights of the event over the years. What have you enjoyed or taken away from that event?
Gosh, there's probably some things we can't speak about, but no. I've been going, I think I've said that I was at the first one. I've been trying to replay that. I'm not sure if it was the first or the second, but there weren't very many of us there. And most people there, with the exception of some people that were from the Port of New Orleans, were all Houston-based folks. So it just became the place to go. It was the most unique gathering for our market. So the expertise was always there, and that's where your best networking opportunity would be. And it was a lot of network building. The camaraderie at that time was really what made the early years of Breakbulk so special. It didn't matter who you worked for. We were all in competition with one another. During those few days at Breakbulk, we were like a little family, and everybody was out together. We were at the same events and parties and making our way through the conference hall, albeit maybe not early in the mornings, but we did make it.
Did you stay till the end?
Well, yes. And I think that's a challenge for us today, isn't it? Because the last day of Breakbulk is one of the most special and important. And anyone who's missing staying is sleeping on that, because you get to meet all these fantastic students that come and walk around, and an opportunity to share, hopefully, your passion for the industry with them. And I have met some amazing people because I'm there on that day. And I think it's important that we are there and that we, really participate to the end, because there's so much excitement in that. Sometimes when we do things for a long time, to meet someone who's fresh and new in it, and they're asking you, how do I get in this business and what should I do next? This is such an opportunity to share what we know. I love that part of it very much.
So there we have it. Stick around, guys.
Yeah, better. Well, let's walk around like hall monitors. We'll take care of that.
And imagine you're hosting a dinner party at Breakbulk Americas. Which 3 people would you invite, past or present?
Oh my gosh, we can't do that. I can't. There's no way. I would surely wind up in big trouble there. But you know what? I'm going to call out a couple of people that were mentors for me, and that I always enjoy hearing what they have to say. John Amos, who was the traffic manager at Bechtel when I started in the business, and not too far behind him, Dennis Mottola, who was always and still is someone whose opinion I would seek out and whose experience I value. And then I'm going to go way back to one that most people don't know, and that's Alan Newhouse, who is the owner of Bearing International. And he gave all of us young people coming in a platform to stand on. I really love that he was a very humble person, and in that way I think he resonates some of the qualities at Maersk that really attracted me there as well. He drove an old beat-up El Camino because it was paid for. He brought his lunch every day to the office in the same brown paper sack that he took it home in, and he traveled all over the world, and he'd seen the business firsthand, and he was at the helm of the ship, and I greatly, greatly respected that. So yeah, I'd love to sit down with him again.
And some quick fire questions to finish. Somebody's just arrived in Houston for Breakbulk. Give us your top tip for food or drink. Where should they go to eat or drink?
Well, I think go to the first night, the opening, because you can get fed pretty well down there just at the opening cocktail hour, and a chance to really get a feeling for the vibe of the event and the people that are there. There's also a couple of restaurants right there in the area that, if you can get in, would make a very nice place to stop in and have a bite. Most of the visitors that come my way, especially coming in from other areas, have 2 things on their mind: Tex-Mex and barbecue. Third is probably steak, and there's all 3 to be found in downtown Houston. So I'd stay close and keep yourself in walking distance is a good advice down there too.
Sounds good. And you've got a disaster shipment and you've got 1 phone call, but it can't be to somebody in your organization. Who would you call to help you with your problem shipment?
A guy named Robin Townley.
Tell us who that is.
Right now, he's doing some work for the United States.
Okay.
But he is someone that he's the originator of the Find a Way or Make One mantra that we adopted. And I could probably bounce ideas off him and come out of that with an answer, especially for something like that.
And complete the sentence. If I wasn't in shipping, I'd be...
In the movies? Why would I not be in shipping? What would be better than this?
Good that you enjoy your work.
I do. I love my work.
Thanks very much, Lana.
It was my pleasure. Thank you again.
Hi, it's Leslie Meredith with the Breakbulk team, and welcome to Voices of Breakbulk Americas, produced by the Project Cargo Professionals podcast to help us celebrate the 35th anniversary of Breakbulk Americas. Enjoy the show and register now so that you can join us in Houston this fall, September 30th through October 2nd for Breakbulk Americas.